Hey everyone, welcome back to this. This is the second podcast for Chasing Optimum. It was 31 minutes. We've changed the name.
Nice.
Frank, hello.
I'm good. How
Frank Greeff.
Frank Greeff.
Frank Greeff. Funny name, Greeff. So,
It's Greeff.
is it French?
It's
on one of your
Dutch.
things you got Francois or something.
Francois. So it's Dutch. So Francois is French, but I'm from South Africa. So it's like a Dutch heritage from South Africa. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
So you have a cool story, which I'd like to drill down on. But you're a chef.
Yes. So
we just trained before we got on this podcast, and I already read a whole lot of stuff about you.
Nice.
But and I've followed you for a long time now. So yeah, tell us, you're a chef.
Yeah, so I was it was like my lifelong passion since I was like 10 years old. So I literally through school had 3 jobs, not because I was like, I couldn't pay, had to pay my way. One, because I wanted to be self-sufficient, which is now that I see my son at 2 years old and I can see I'm trying to take off his shoes, he's like, no. I'm like, okay, this is like ingrained in us. Okay, cool. But 2 was because I just love food. I can't remember when I didn't love food. And so through my school days, I was at cafes and restaurants, and then straight after I became a chef at a fine dining restaurant.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You like food, but did you like making it?
Yeah, I love making. Yeah. I both loved eating it, but I loved the process of doing it. Yeah. So only in the recent years with my awesome wife, who's a clinical psychologist, when I don't know, stupidly asked the question, do you think what would you diagnose me with? And she laughed and she said, I'm obviously ADHD. And so I think that it was something that kept my hands busy. And so if I kind of back solve why I loved it, it's like when I had my friends over, you're sitting there and you're like twitching and stuff like that. And it's like, well, that's a bit weird, brother. Compared to when I'm in front of the kitchen and I'm talking and I'm chopping and my hands are kind of busy and then I'm like fully engaged. I think that was part of it. And like, there's a little bit of ego, there's a little bit of excitement when someone goes, oh my God, this is the best whatever I've ever tasted. And you're like,
oh yeah. So you like pleasing people?
Yeah.
You like the pleasing, like the satisfying. Oh, they love that.
For sure. Like
it's a bit like an artwork, I guess.
Yeah. It's like, I think, I don't know all the love languages, but mine's definitely like giving and giving through time. And so like every time my friends come over, it's some elaborate meal. Like I had friends over the other weekend, like 2 back to back. They were there long enough for lunch and dinner, and it was like the most elaborate meals for just 4 of us. It's like ridiculous.
So you're really known. Some people might not even have a clue who you are. So you're really known for selling your company for a lot of money. 180 million, 160 million,
180 million,
180 million. But before we talk about that. I read about you that you were a chef and then you worked on this side gig that turned into a pretty big side gig.
Yes.
So how did you manage that?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the reasons.
Yes.
I had a call yesterday. A girl called Alana, and she said, I was on the way to the factory, and she said that she works in corporate and what's my advice around doing a side gig? Following a passion.
Got it.
Did you know it was your passion?
So I think probably the one delineation here is it wasn't a side gig. So it very much was a decision moment. I can kind of take you back to this exact moment. I had the chef I probably looked most up to in the kitchen, and for whatever reason I was like, hey, do you Christmas coming up, and I was like, do you cook for your family for Christmas? Because that was my ritual. I would put on a big show for my family. I would drive to the fresh food markets 2 days prior. There was like a chicken sauce that took me like 62 hours to like prepare. It was all this stuff. And I loved it. And he goes, no, I hate cooking, Frank. Anytime I can not cook, I'll not cook. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I kind of like extrapolated my life out, and I was like, I knew he was on probably 120 grand. He's 45 years old. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I don't want to be that, because I love cooking and I want to keep that forever. And then it wasn't too long after that, my brother said to me, we lived in an apartment we owned together, and he said, there's an opportunity to go install real estate signboards in Melbourne. Do you want to go and do that? And I was like, at the time, I just, my now wife and I had gone through, my big existential crisis, which was our breakup. And I was like,
What, you and her broke up?
We broke up, yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get jacked and rich. so like, let me
when was this? How old? You're 32 now?
Yeah. So I was at that time, I would have been 20 years old.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of joking when I say Jackson Rich, but also like it's kind of like what's the driver when you're 20 years old. You're like kind of like in the I'll show you mode.
Yeah.
And within 6 weeks of that conversation, I quit my job at Bathers. Ken and I packed up everything and we moved to Melbourne to go start.
Bathers is a restaurant?
Bathers Pavilion, the restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we moved to Melbourne to start this dream of becoming rich.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was nothing. There was no passion in it. Right. So like the kitchen days were very much filled with passion because that was what I loved to do. But I saw that passion doesn't necessarily serve you in all areas because the passion got me to $42,000 a year. I was doing 60 hours a week. On more than 2 to 3 occasions, I would fall asleep on my way home. You know, my worst was I fell asleep on the way to work and I woke up on the median strip. And that was just purely a reflection of you're working 16 hours a day. I drove an hour to get to home. So now you're only like a 4-hour sleep window.
So this thing then, so you saw what more scope in this thing, or did you see more
money opportunity?
Money opportunity.
Yeah.
So you chased the money.
100%.
You went opposite to what?
Correct. Yeah.
What the a lot of people say, don't chase the money.
So I think, and that's it. Like I'm real honest with that kind of stuff. Like I'm a commercial person. Now I don't go, if you don't have money, you're not happy. But I'm like, hey, the reality is like you can do something, create money, and then you can kind of find your passion or whatever you want to do elsewhere. And we saw that a real estate signboard was $230. The cost to produce it was roughly $60 plus time. And we were like, okay, we could do 10 a day, 5 days a week. And we worked the back envelope math, and we're like, I'm going to be able to make what I make in Bathers in like, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. And I was like, oh, well, it's a no-brainer. But what I later realized, some of these things always, you get, I guess, the beauty of hindsight. A lot of this thinking you're not doing. What I later realized is you can find the passion in things. So you don't have to be, I never left that business going, I'm deeply passionate about real estate signboards and I'm deeply passionate about making a real estate agent's job more efficient. Like it would just be a straight out lie. But what I was deeply passionate about was making a product that people loved. What I was deeply passionate about is being a leader to people and seeing them grow, creating something that has, the measurements of success, which was financial. So all of those things I was super passionate about, but the end state particular product, that was just a vehicle to kind of express the passion.
That's interesting. So what happened then?
So we spent.
So you're in Melbourne now?
Yeah, we're in Melbourne now. Yeah, and so we just literally spent the next year, the same kind of effort and energy I did as a chef, we put into this job, and this was like we just for the first 7 years of our business, our favorite quote used to be, we're just making this shit up as we go. And it truly was. It was like, we didn't.
So is this signboards?
Signboards, like literally.
Can't picture you putting signboards up.
Yeah. So my brother's a bit more jacked, so he's got about an extra 10 kilos. So he'd hold the signboard and I'd hold the drill. And so it was like, that was the process was like on the weekends, you're literally building the frames for the signboard. You got to go find a manufacturer. In our lounge room, we have wide format printers and printing for brochures and all that stuff. And then during the day, we're installing signboards, doing the customer calls, and occasionally doing sales. So it's just like a really.
And it was you and your 2 other brothers?
So myself and my eldest brother in Melbourne. My middle brother was doing it in Sydney. So we're kind of both doing the same things in 2 different areas. And we just did that.
What was the company called?
So it was, that's the one thing I never answered because it was actually a franchise, and it was a franchise that we later exited and it got very messy.
Okay. So you were a franchise.
We were part of a franchise. Okay. Yeah. And so we did that for a year, sold the franchise, came back to Sydney and did it all over again. And that was an event that eventually turned into.
And when you say did it all over again, did what all over again?
So what we did is we went, okay, we've kind of not mastered, but we've learnt the process of doing signboards reasonably efficiently. We've learnt the process of printing brochures, but we're living in Melbourne in a place called Croydon, which is like we have no friends, no family, nothing. And so all we did was 6-7 days was this job. And it was like, you wake up in the morning, we go train, me and my brother. We sit at our lounge room and work all day in a lounge room. Then you pull out the bean bags, you sit for 30 minutes to like watch the TV, which is our computer screen, and then you go to bed. And like you get into a state of almost like craziness because you're like, I haven't done anything. That was the year that I sacrificed. I've never been to a 21st birthday as an example because all my friends went to their 21st birthdays and it was the big year of celebrations for them. I'm a bit younger and I'd never went to one because I couldn't because I was doing this. And so we kind of went, okay, we want to keep doing this, but we can't do it from Melbourne because we're just going to lose our minds. Myself and my brother were tense because everything's too intertangled, right? And so we sold that business for like 150 grand and essentially merged our printing with my brother Jacques. And so the three of us were now in Sydney, but now we're inside a factory, and it was a bit more of a real business getting created, not like out of a lounge room.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And what was that business called?
So that was still inside the franchise.
Okay.
And so I'll kind of like, I'll fast forward to the moment why the franchise stuff matters.
How many years was this progressed?
So now we're only 1 year in.
1 year in?
1 year in, yeah.
Okay.
So 1 year in, we're probably doing, I don't know, maybe 200 grand revenue. And we sold that. So we're essentially starting again.
Okay.
And so for the next 4 years, so it took us exactly 5 years to get to $1 million revenue. And so for the next literal 4 years from there, it was just like, slowly working out like, okay, if we add an employee, we don't have to do the signboards. If we add someone, I don't have to be behind the printer. And so you're kind of figuring out, because we didn't have any like mentors or role models that have paved the way before. I listened to a lot of content, but the world looked very different in our eyes because we didn't have anybody saying like, this is what business is. We just thought it was fundamentals, which was earn money, spend less, have some profit. and then take all of your profits, every single dollar, and reinvest so you can delay the tax challenges that you're going to have so your business can grow. And so we would literally do that, where we got to a place where I mentioned we had an investment apartment. We sold our apartments. My brother and I, Jacques, dropped our salaries to $400 a week, and we were just like all in. So at that time, I got married at that time, and my wife and I, now wife and I, our engagement party was in our factory, our signboard factory. So we put cloths up over the top of the signboards, made it all look like bougie chic. My wedding happened at the same time. Again, I'm still earning $400 a week. So my wedding happened on my parents' farm in Albury. I cooked for my own wedding. Now all my friends are getting my friends are doing.
Made do.
Just made do.
Probably better than most.
Yeah, well, it was amazing. Like it was like exactly what I wanted to see is food. Like so, myself and my two friends from the kitchen days, we cooked. I remember I spent 16 grand on that wedding, and it was like all like there wasn't really like family contribution because my parents we used their farm. But now my friends are doing like 90s and 100s, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like because it wasn't like there was no. I didn't feel like there was any balance between like we'll just make do. It was like no, we're gonna like make it epic.
Yeah.
But because we just can cut certain costs because they're like unnecessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so year 5 comes along, and we realize we've kind of near mastered the craft of like doing a signboard efficiently, doing a brochure efficiently. But what was letting us down was the franchise we were part of. And so the franchise was very much like they had a tech platform, but it wasn't working. Anytime you wanted to change the website, it might be 6 months to a year later. And we just weren't able to be as responsive to our customers as we needed. And so we had this moment where myself and my two brothers sat in front of a whiteboard, and we went, okay, we need to make a change. We need to make our own brand. And I'm really thankful. It was actually my eldest brother, Ken, that kind of pushed us to go, we need to become a tech company to be able to make efficient the process of doing signboards and brochures.
How come Ken got just a normal name? There's Jacques and there's Francois and there's Ken.
Because my dad's name is Ken, so he's Ken the third. So he actually gets the most special name. And so we went, okay, we're going to do it. We're closing in on $1 million revenue. We made a decision we're going to leave the franchise. And the context here is why it's super important is my parents had their own franchise underneath the same banner. They were a photography franchise. We were a signboard and brochure franchise. We had no commercial relationship between one another. There was no we were reporting into them. We both reported into the head franchisor. And so the decision was made. We put down on the whiteboard, what's the worst case scenario if we leave this franchise? And the worst case scenario was they'll lose their business by association, because it looks like, they're not connected, but come on, they're parents and their children. And so we made a call that day, which was like, if that happens, we're going to pay our parents back the cost that their business was worth, which is about $1 million. And so we looked each other eye to eye and said, okay, we're going to make that call. If anything bad happens, we'll pay them $1 million, which like in context is about 20 years of profits. But we just had this like delusional belief that it's all going to work out. And so we did. Mm-hmm. And within about 6 months, we launched the platform. My brother had single-handedly coded the platform. So he taught himself how to become an engineer at age 14. So he just kind of learned from Google. We launch and everything's going great. The customers are loving it. The customer's like, this is incredible.
Is this in the franchise? Or is this
we've now launched.
And you've got your own. What is this? What your company called now?
So the company was Real Hub. So there's three iterations of the company. It's the franchise, the unknown. The Frank never uses the name. It's Real Hub, and then ultimately what we sold was Real Base, which is a merger. Yeah. So Real Hub. Real Hub launches, customers are loving it, and I get a call on a Saturday morning, and it was my brother, and he said, Mum and Dad have lost their business. We need to figure this out. And so it was in that moment where like the entire world felt like it was collapsing. They took us to court. We lost 30% of our revenue. My parents had lost their business. So they'd gone from earning about $500,000.
Who took you to court? The franchise?
The headmaster franchise. Yeah, so they took us to court.
For competitive reasons?
So yeah, for essentially like breaking your franchise agreement and all this kind of stuff. Now the beautiful part about taking the court system is all you have to do is scare someone enough that you're like, I don't want to go to court for the next 4 years, and you can ultimately like get them to mediate and give you cash, because it's like, well, what am I going to do? Spend 4 years in court and hundreds of thousands of dollars and everybody loses, or am I just going to pay some cash? And so our choice was pay the cash.
Did you have it?
So that's where we drew down from like any personal stuff we had. So that was part of the reason we sold our businesses. I mean, sold our apartments and all that kind of stuff. So it was like we scrounged together. It was only 50 grand, but in context, 50 grand was probably a year's salary, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm 24 years old, so 50 grand is it's a lot. And so that was it, and that was the start of Real Hub. My parents, I'm incredibly grateful. I remember very clearly we're all together in our 2-bedroom apartment that we were renting at the time. My mum's got tears running down her face. So like they've gone from $500,000 earning per year to zero overnight, and she still says to me, "This is not your fault. Just keep pushing. We don't blame you. We believe in you." And so like that was like the most important thing I think to ever happen, because now your back's against a wall. If I could drill back and go to you, had that not happened, Matt, would we have had a $180 million exit? I think the answer would be no, because our why had become so strong that it was now like there was never a hesitation, because like, oh, I don't feel like making a cold call today to get more business. Like, no, that's not an option, right? It's like, now we have to get this $1 million back to our parents. And so, I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, or else we'll be on the memoir of Frank the entire time. But from there, we started to really fly because we had this like laser focus, and everything became like an obsession for us to get out of that goal, out of that hole. And within 3 years, we'd launched Real Hub. Within 3 years, we'd taken on a business called Campaign Track, which was essentially our kind of a replica, but a bit more of an incumbent in 20 years in the space. We'd taken 30% of their market share. And so one day they walk in the door and say, we want to merge, and we want you.
You merged with Campaign Track.
Yeah.
We use Campaign Track.
I know.
Yeah, right.
So by the merger that came together, 47% of the entire Australia New Zealand market share comes through our business. So 1 in every 2 properties that sells, and all, 50%, well, more than 50% of the real estate agents, because it's like disproportionate to the best ones, if that makes sense. So we, through that merger is the moment we went from 40 team members to 400 overnight.
Because of Campaign Track.
Because of Campaign Track. So they were 8 times the size of us in revenue, 4 times the size of us in profit. But what we had going for us was this like incredible growth trajectory, and we were stealing their growth. And so
So you became the disruptor.
We were the disruptor, 100%. And so what I was able to negotiate is a 50-50 merger because of where we were in time.
Do you ever look back and, because I think about Snapchat guy, how he got offered $3 billion to sell, and he said no at the time. Yeah. But the YouTube guys sell at $1 billion.
Yeah.
Do you ever look back and think, oh, I shouldn't have sold?
To the actual end state of where we sold for 180?
Yeah, like just in general, like do you think that could have gone to 500 or? No,
I think
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no. It's a really good question, and the answer is like actually never. And the why, there's a couple of reasons why. Like $1 today is worth a lot more than $1 in 20 years, and so for 180 today, if we were selling in 10 years, it'd have to actually be worth like, I don't know, 1.2 billion almost, because it's like the opportunity cost of not having that cash in bank. The next is like, I think about business in the form of purely, it's a bit of a game. And so like, I feel like I've played levels 1 to 3. I've played, 400 team members, great market share in a particular market. We did roughly $85 million in revenue. So I played that level, and I'm like, okay, cool. But now I want to play levels 4, 5, and 6. And that wasn't the right vehicle to get us to 4, 5, and 6. So 4, 5, and 6 in my mind is like, what's the thing that I can take to America? What's the thing that can be worth $1 billion? And so there isn't really any precedence in the Australian property market that would allow me to get there. And so I need a vehicle that will get me there, but also I now need a vehicle that I'm super passionate about.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Your old business, like, well, when you merged and then you sold, like, especially with the merger, did you feel like it was as far as you could take it yourself? Like, was it
post-merger or
yeah, like post-merger, it was like it seems like you get really pumped about the creating something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having talked to you when we were training just then and now, and even when your eyes, like you like talking about the building. So it's sort of like you hit this milestone, you merged. Yes, it's your company, but you got all these other moving parts now. Was the flavour gone out of the chewing gum a little bit?
Not during the time of the merger. I think the merger taught me so many amazing lessons, right? Like we didn't have roles and stuff like that, and to go into something which is a CEO and you like 400 people it's a reasonable number of people. So I had 15 direct reports. So I had to figure out what a direct report meant. So like there was so much I learned, and I think from like I was learning business 101 up until the merger. I then started to learn a good chunk through the merger, and then going through the sale of the business is like I started to like there's certain moments of like not mastery, but starting to get close. But post sale, I've definitely learned a lot, which is you change from long term founder thinking to we're a part of a bigger company. We're one part of the company. Doesn't mean it's the right or wrong decisions, but your decisions are no longer in your fingertips, and decisions have to be coerced, and people have to be kind of encouraged to make a decision. Where like my brain doesn't work like that. Like
you like to be in it.
I want to be in it. Like I love the detail and stuff like that.
Rowing hard.
Yeah.
Feeling the rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
And so that's I'm less previously I was really fascinated with this idea. I want to take a company public. I have zero fascination about that because I now see the difference between public market and private. And I'm like, no, I love private, and I love, I want to be at the helm of decision making. Now I don't need my decision to always happen, but it's me and my brother and the key leadership team, and we can like flesh out a decision but move at pace. I don't want to have a committee and then write a business case.
You want to be nimble. You want to be like maneuverable.
Yeah.
And I watched McGrath go public, and I think they spent $2 million a year just reporting.
That's right. That's just so standard.
Just reporting. Yeah. It's like, wow. Johnny was like saying, "Oh mate, we just all the reports and he's very much like you. Like he just wants to be the or not really. He's just great on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
Like, let's go this way.
Yeah.
Go that way.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you sold for a lot of money, and then did the money change you?
So I think my big thing was I listened to a lot of content around what it looks like to be a post-exit founder, and the same things came over and over again. Lose a sense of purpose. Money is great until you become like a new baseline dopamine where it's like you've become used to it. And so I was really clearly expecting that. And so I loved the journey of creating the business. I wasn't one of those people that had to like retrospectively look back and go like, oh, the magic was in the journey. Now I should have enjoyed it. Like I really loved it. Obviously there's times you just like literally eating spoons of shit by the bucket, right? But it's like, you get out of those little ebbs and flows. But the money does change things. Like it definitely, so I went from living in a 2-bedroom apartment that we rented. My total assets was like a Volkswagen Golf.
You drive a Lamborghini now.
Thanks, Matt. and so you go from that to me and my wife bought a 10 mil property on the beach in our local area. And so you're going from it's like
how much you end up with after you sell for 180 and there's a few partners and there's tax, and how much you actually end up with?
So 25 mil and then less tax. So in a single tax bill, $6.2 million of tax.
Yeah, okay.
That felt pretty sweet.
A decent chunk.
A decent chunk. Yeah. So it's enough to like technically go. The investments will spit out $500,000 to $600,000 a year. I'd have to work again. But that just doesn't get me excited.
Well, that's for sure. I think it just allows you to do things.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going. $10 million house on the beach.
Yeah. So like having those.
Was that your dream to live on the beach?
Yeah, like they're like we walked into this place and I was like, this is for us. Like this is like the life I want to live. It's got a big kitchen. The kitchen's open wide, where it's like I had to have the kitchen near the living space, and when my friends come over, I'm part of the action. Got a wood fire oven on the balcony. So all those things are like I'm just like perfect. And so that part, I've gone to a place where I'm like I'm not chasing the next. I can see how it can happen where you're like, oh, but imagine if we had a slightly
farm or an aeroplane.
Yeah,
I actually want a jet, but
I do want a jet.
I'll probably never use it, but I just want one.
But it's like a difference between like I want that to be fun and like I need that. And so like I think again, going from hardly ever having a holiday. I always took 2-3 weeks off, but then going to be able to fly in the first time we flew first class to Europe. Have fun, right? So there's definitely things that was like that are, and I'm incredibly grateful for. And so I'm not one of those people like, I wish you had all the money in the bank so you realize nothing changes, because like I don't think that's true. But I think like if you're sad, I don't think it's all of a sudden going to make you happy.
For sure. So what if someone's listening to this? I mean, some of our audience is real estate, some of our audience is fitness, some of our audience is just people, living life and, whole thing. And there's always, like the lady that called me yesterday, just asking for some advice. I don't mind that. I like answering questions and stuff like that. It's, but they feel like there's a bit more out there for them. So you got Frank in Melbourne banging signboards in. Were you always like the ideas come from a need, so you could see that this could be done better. But what if someone's working in a normal job, and like corporate or real estate, and they feel like I'm a little bit like that myself with 31 minutes that I had, and it didn't really go. I don't know. I could see what it could do, but didn't really sort of end up that way. Now it's like I'm always seeing what else is out there. What's your thoughts around working? Because not everyone needs to own a business.
Yeah.
But if they've got another passion, how do they merge all of that? Like, what's your guidance around that?
Oof, good one. Firstly, I'm loving the goat. Like, just is
that out the back?
Is that a goat?
Yeah, that's a goat out the back.
I'm liking it. It's like ambience, like we're building to the crescendo of the story. Okay, here's the thing. I think the first part you said is probably the most important, which is like not everybody needs to have a business, right? And so it's like the reality of business is I get to sit here in this beautiful moment where I get to talk and connect the dots in hindsight. In those moments, which we brush over, is like there's moments where you're like at such a low like energy, everything sucks, and it's the unknown. Because if you got to wave a magic wand in the beginning, go, Frank, you're about to start a 10-year journey. At the end of it, there's going to be a $180 million sale. You have $20 million in your bank. Would you like to go? I'm like, let's go. Compared to, hey, Frank, you're going to go and do this. You have no idea what's on the other end, and just work really hard, and hopefully one day it pays off. And you haven't yet created the stack of evidence which tells you these are the right things to do to get to the outcome. You just are creating what you believe are the steps, right? So I kind of start there to go, but the reality is if you're wired like me and I did the job and I was like, no, there's got to be something else for me, then let's start there. And so I think here's the thing. I do a bit of advisory work, advise about 7 or 8 businesses, and then I do a bit of mentoring with people who are kind of in that particular stage in their life. And probably the most common thing I see is people's fixation on perfect. So the perfect product, or the perfect business, and they need I need it to light up my soul. And I think the process of actually starting, you can only learn what perfect is through that process, or not perfect, but you learn what is really, really good through the process. Because again, we started with signboards, there was no passion in there, but through the process of doing it, I was like, oh, actually, I quite like raising a team, or I quite like seeing the numbers grow. And so I learnt the passion. So there's a lot of people I know that have 10, 12, 15, 20 different business ideas. Honestly, the way I encourage you to go is like this. Do one. What's the one that feels like it's less capital intensive? It gives you a bit more energy when you think about it, and you reckon you can give it a crack. Just start. Because the process of starting will create momentum, and inevitably where you start is so different to where you finish.
I want to run along this because I think it's very important what you're saying, and I think people need to understand that. You said something that was really good about you weren't passionate about signboards. Yep. I mean, I understand that because I actually I don't love real estate, but I really like parts of it. I think it's really good what you said then. So in real estate, I like the flexibility of running around and doing things, and I like helping people sell their home. I didn't like door knocking. I didn't like all of that stuff, but I did it. It was an important part. So you did the signboards, but maybe the growing the business was really what you were passionate about, but the signboard was just an instrument along the way. And were you IT minded?
Not at all.
I'm just sitting here
Yeah.
thinking, because your brother, Jacques.
Yeah.
Jacques.
So both Ken and Jacques ended up being software engineers in the business.
Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah, I was wondering, were you? Because you ended up with
Yeah.
a IT-based, excuse me, company.
Yeah.
You know, so like that's interesting to me, because it's, you know, you sort of, it seems like you ended up in this position. Because if you go back to what you said before, you whiteboard things out.
Yep.
So writing things down.
Yep.
When you whiteboarded them out, was that just ideas? I want to drill down onto this, because I think people sit there going, I want to be Frank.
Yes.
And I want to sell for 180 million. And I've got to come up with this amazing idea that's somewhere else apart from where I am.
Yes.
Because that book, Acres of Diamonds, I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's a great book. It's basically, there's diamonds on the farm. The guy went looking for diamonds everywhere and sold his farm. The diamonds are actually on the farm. Sometimes the opportunity is right where you are. Yeah, because I think a lot of people do wander around in life thinking,
somewhere else.
I need this amazing idea to fall out of the sky so I can become wealthy or comfortable or happy. Like you, with the amount of money that you have, you said you could be quite comfortable with that, you know, but you like the drive of, you know, let's keep going and enjoying life, and not just sitting there eating Doritos and watching Oprah every day.
Yes, yes.
What do you think, like, around? So the steps, listening to you, whiteboard it out.
Yep.
You've said it a couple of times.
Yes.
So obviously get out, draw it out, write it down.
Yes. So
tell me about it.
Let me run through. And I think that this is what's really important to caveat here is there's what we did, which was making the shit up as we go, and what I do now. And I think it's actually more valuable to talk what I do now through, because I've connected the dots of hindsight to go like what works. And so like I've been on a journey with my brother Jacques for the last 6 months to find the right next move for our business. And so the first thing I like to do is go like, what is a deadline to make a decision? Now our deadline is blown out a little bit because we have the comfort of we don't need to make a decision. But we still have a deadline of time.
And you probably know a bit more what you're doing now.
That's right. That's right.
So you can sort of, when you don't, you're like, let's just throw it all out.
Yeah, that's right.
It at least makes us do something.
Yeah.
A bit like an auction day.
Yeah. And so the first part is we go, okay, like what you start the process of going like, what is an interesting space, either by my skill set or by a gap that I might see? And no idea is a bad idea. Right. So what we just do is we have like a document in our that we share between Jacques and I. We just throw out ideas. Or when we go running, we throw out ideas. We're like, what if we were to be in construction? Like, what would the gap be there? And we just start talking about it. And so what we do is we start ideating on these different concepts. Again, no idea is a bad idea. And so there's a psychological principle when it comes to creativity. When you start a process, you'll think linear, which is like, these are the skills I have, this is the market I'm in, and you go like step by step by step, and it constrains the way in which you're thinking. So what we like to do is go, wave a magic wand, I had unlimited resources, what would I do? Wave a magic wand, I only have $1,000 to spend, what would I do? And so you stretch your creative mind to get you to like nth degrees, and in that moment comes magic. And so like for Jacques and I, we went through 12 different businesses. Once we had those different concepts, we then start researching. Are people searching this on Google? What is the market size? And someone might be like, Frank, how do I identify that? Like Google, what is the market size of this thing? It's just different series of questions to go, okay, and I'm starting to like paint this picture. So I have a framework that I've created, which is what are the questions I need to ask in order to start a business? And once I've done that, I then go like, okay, are there any data points that stops me from moving forward? I.e., let's say you're like, I'm going to create the next AI company, which is going to revolutionize the world. Okay, cool. Well, the capital markets today tell me that you can raise billions of dollars if you're in AI, but you have to know what you're doing, be in Silicon Valley, and there's all these data points to go like, I'm not going to do that, right? You know what I'm saying? And so those things there, by having many different things, what I find is each time you do something, a little moment of magic comes. And so for our new business, we have put together all the magic together. And so I take a step back, like it's not about me here, it's about for a person. It's like just understanding the process of setting yourself a deadline and going, okay, I'm going to do something in the next 6 months. I'm giving myself 6 months of your time, let's call it 2 hours a day or 5 hours a week. And I'm going to go through this process of a logical process. What's going to happen is you're going to start building momentum. You're going to start building your creative mind to start thinking about things. And before you know it, everything you think about is like, what's a new opportunity? It's like when someone wants to buy that new car and all they see is that new car.
So before we go too much further on this, I want to ask a question on this very thing. So let's say someone's working a job.
Yes.
They're in a job, they're a waitress.
Yep.
And they think, I'd like to do, I don't know, sell things on Amazon or whatever they want. I want to do beauty therapy. I want to do something. So what you just said then, they could write down.
Yes.
What would you do? So you write a few things down and dedicate 2 hours a day to it.
Yeah,
just 2 hours a day.
Just have a fixated amount of time that you're like, this is the time I'm going to sit in front of my computer and I'm going to think about ideas. So like I do this today where I'm on a plane, and if I'm on a plane, I was talking to you guys, I don't listen to music and stuff like that, and I use that as my thinking time. And so I'll think about what is a business idea, or once I have it, I go, what is a content idea for my business? And so I just schedule the time, and you go like, I'm not going to pick up my phone, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just doing this, even if nothing comes from it. But like the repetition of you putting yourself in that space will start to build.
So every day. So can we just an example on this? Because I get a lot of questions about this. People say they might be in real estate, they might be in anything. And then they go, oh, I want to do wellness. I want to be I want a wellness center. So let's say take that.
Yes.
They want a wellness center.
Great.
That was the call yesterday.
Perfect.
Maybe a wellness center. And then so you would write down what I want a wellness center in 2 years' time or something.
Yes. Yep.
And then say, what do you do?
And then I go like this. So here's how I go. I go, I want a wellness center and I always go like, what's a long period of time? Cut that in half, and what's something that's going to get me a sense of urgency. So let's say I want to open up a wellness center in 1 year's time. If I needed to open up a wellness center, what would I need to do? So I'd be like, okay, first thing I need to do is I need to have a premises. Okay, well, where would I have a premises? Okay, well, I have to have a premises that's not close to other ones. So now I've got something to do. I've got to research where's the local premises. If I want a premises, inside that premises, what should I have? Okay, now I have a job where I have to go and look.
Like red light bed, float.
Yes.
Okay.
What are the common themes that I'm seeing? You know, okay, next would be like, okay, I would go talk to those people. Hey, I love your wellness center. Out of curiosity, what do people use the most? Is it the red light bed? Is it the sauna? Is it the ice bath? Is it a mixture of everything? Because what I'm trying to do is like, what would be the path of least resistance to an open one? Because one down the road might have everything, but you find out that 20% of the equipment is what's used 80% of the time. I've just saved you shitloads of cash.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? But only through this process of going through these series of questions, in the starting position should always be like, why shouldn't I be able to have one? And if I were to have one, what would I need to do? And you just methodically work through that process. You'll slowly start to kind of peel away the onion. And before you know it, you have a document which says, okay, in order to create a wellness center in the next 12 months, here's what I need to do. And you go, okay, do I want to do that? You know what I mean? And so like we do that.
I see. So you don't necessarily even have to do it. You can start giving it energy.
Correct.
And then somewhere along the line, you might go, yeah, it's just maybe not feeling right, or maybe it was a great idea, but not practical.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. That's very helpful. So what's happening for you now? Like, where are you at in life?
Yes.
You know, you're sitting in your beachfront, driving a Lamborghini. You seem pretty happy. You're fit.
Yep.
You know, you're
Thank you.
here, there, and everywhere. Like, what are you doing now?
So I have kind of three core focuses. Number one is I wrote a cookbook called Eat with Purpose. So that's a mission to raise $1 million for children's cancer.
I've got to buy some too. I keep forgetting to order. Yes.
Right. I only did that to remind you. And so that's launched last week. I checked this morning, we're about 70 grand into the goal of $1 million. Awesome. So it's been out for 8 or 9 days.
Where do they get it, by the way?
They get it.
We'll put a link on here, Jackson.
Yeah. They eatwithpurpose.net.
Okay.
Eatwithpurpose.net. And so the idea is $99. It's designed for high performance meals, 15 to 30 minutes. The macronutrients are thought of. It's all of the food that I did.
Go check it. Where's Ash? Oh, okay.
It's all the food that I did as my time as a CEO building a business. And so that's kind of like my passion project and my way to give back. So I've spent the costs.
Did you write the book?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Yeah.
I was like, did you write it all?
So what I did is I used a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
So the idea is it's all from
all
me.
your ideas.
Yeah.
And they put the...
Correct. So I wrote every single recipe. Every recipe has photos and a video. So you scan the QR code. There's me cooking the recipe, showing you what to do.
Did you just Siri all the recipes?
No. I had a process. So my process was I sat in another one of my versions of a plane. I sat on a plane to Manila and I had 6 hours and I watched screens with food. So the colors of the food and the reminder of ingredients that I wouldn't normally use with no sound on. And I started to create a spreadsheet, which was like, oh, that could work together. That could work together. And I created in that plane run about 35 recipes. And then each day, so across 6 days, we filmed 62 recipes. And each night I would think about what should I make the next day. And the recipe recipes, although very good, were mostly created out of my mind the night before.
Awesome.
And so the recipe cooking was actually the first time I ever did it.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
But hey, everybody, it does.
You know what you're doing.
So that's part one. Part two is I do some like advisory work for businesses. Now, I don't do that to invite people because I'm kind of at capacity, but I do that because I wanted to sharpen my skills. I went, okay, I know how to create a property technology company in real estate. How does that translate to something like renewable energies? So I advise a renewable energies company. I advise a podcast company. I advise a fast growing tech. And so I was trying to like make sure the building blocks of business are consistent. And the third thing I do is I'm now gun-ho on my next project. And my next project, I'm uniquely not telling people what it is, not because I'm scared they're going to steal my ideas, because we've just about to hire 3 more content people, and we're going to create a docu-series on how we're building our business from the ground up.
Awesome.
And so what I want to do is
Is that on YouTube?
It's going to be on YouTube. That's right. And so what I want to do is,
What's it called? Business with Frankie or something?
Don't know yet. So it's literally, we're doing job interviews last week. And so we're going to spend quite a bit of money to track this. And so we've already started filming the recording process because, I do a lot of podcasts and stuff, and a lot of it's in theory. I want to show people like the reality, right? So like me and Jacques will sit in front of a whiteboard and I had a friend over who's in business, and he goes, I couldn't believe how much you obsessed and got excited when you guys figured out what that button's going to look like. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So I kind of want to show people the reality of what it looks like to every step of the way, and talk people through, why did I spend more time on that step compared to this one? Certain things I move incredibly fast, and certain things are very considered, like a user experience, to make sure it's an optimal product.
Yeah, great.
So long answer, but 3 things.
So when's your deadline for that?
My deadline for that is in 9 months, and we're going to launch in the State Theatre, and we're going to do like a minimum viable product launch similar to like the iPhone Steve Jobs. I might wear a turtleneck, who knows? And we want to have 2,000 people in the room who are excited about this launch. And so the archetype of person I'm looking after is people who are founding businesses. So we want to help people in the different stages of business, not in like an online e-learning platform, but actual different executional strategy pieces.
Cool. A couple more questions.
No worries.
What's your biggest mistake you've made?
You know what's really interesting about this question is I've made so many mistakes in my journey, and I will bring up one so it's not a boring answer, but I think when you have a mindset which is the mistake is just a learning lesson to get to the next thing, you don't fixate on them. So therefore, I couldn't really quickly tell you because I have no regrets. And so I couldn't quickly surface to you, oh, that's a thing, because my mind, where you truly are making mistakes is when you're no longer in the game. So that as long as you're still in the game and you're learning from that, you're fine. But now let me tell you what I believe was. I think post-exit, I went through, although I talk in this place, which is like, I knew everything was going on. I think the reality is I did lose some purpose and focus, and I started to sway. I started to, train a little bit less. I started to do a bit more, just started to drink a little bit more on the weekends and stuff like that. And I think I if I truly look back, there's 6-7 months of like lost focus, and I don't have to be a machine robot all the time, but I love momentum and how you can build. And I do wonder, had I not lost that 7 months, what would things look like? Did
you lose that 7 months because you lost the zing?
Yeah.
Like you were like, I sort of made it.
You kind of, like I'm not in that state of creativity. I'm on the flow. And there were certain things, like if someone looked back, they're like, what do you mean, Frank, you did this? But I'm like, I set myself to a particular standard. And I was like, what it looks like from the outside doesn't really matter, because I know deeply inside that I could have done more. I'll paint you a picture. I was, very frequently, 5 days a week, there would be 2 hours of working, and I'd go have an afternoon nap.
And so like,
because I can, and I'm like, it was a bit much, and like the momentum starts to roll the other way, which is like I would look in front of my computer, and I'd spend 2 hours and I maybe did 4 emails, and you're like kind of in this process of looking busy, and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like either like choose to not do something for a particular period of time and then run fast. Don't be in this wishy-washy middle land. And I was there. And so I don't regret it in any way, shape or form. I think that helped me realize, like right now I'm in the busiest I've ever been. Like I'm doing 4 a.m. starts, 9 p.m. finishes. I've integrated life and business in one and the same. But I'm in the best place I've ever been, because like the momentum and the energy is this. I'm just going, and I'm loving it.
Do you think you got to have that hunger? If you don't have the hunger,
definitely.
you start to die inside a little bit, don't you?
Oh, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. Like I think that many people would hear that about me and go like, "That's disgusting. I don't want that." But for me, it's like I said, it's integrating life and business together. So it's like my son comes and trains with me in the morning. So I've spent 3 quality hours with him before I start work because he's been in the gym. But at the gym, I'm talking about business because so it's like all the integration between those things. But I'm just wired that way. Like I love it. And I've realized through that process of taking that 7 months of being a little bit lost, that I couldn't just be on the beach yet. I don't think I've earned the mental ability to just be on the beach and not sway and not do things that I shouldn't be doing. I think I had to kind of go through that process to go, okay, that's not the way my life, like it's not the way I'm wired. So just run with what you have.
What's your wife like?
She's amazing.
Is she?
She's amazing.
How does she put up with you being? I can tell you're a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
Like that's where your happy spot is.
Yes.
How does she manage you?
She's awesome. So I think at the moment is a bit of a challenge because I did go from the afternoon naps and we had date day on a Thursday and that was amazing to going like, oh fuck, okay, he's gone full steam, and it was a flick of a switch. So Jark and I decided and landed on this business idea 3.5 weeks ago. In 3.5 weeks, we've started our branding with a branding team. Next week, we fly to Sri Lanka to talk with a software engineering team. We've built out our user experience. We've built out our marketing plan and launch. We've built building blocks to make a really successful business in 3.5 weeks. And so that's been a lot for her. However, I'm really good at being present when I should be present. And so, for example, Saturday, Sunday came. My phone really wasn't really on me.
Jack, do you want to you gotta help out. Stormy.
Okay.
Shut the front door, Jack. Shut the front door. Jack, just shut the front door, mate. Yeah, sorry, dog fight.
It's a local dog. I'll wait for the door to come down.
So do you communicate well with your wife?
Yeah.
Like, is that part of because a lot of people would be in a relationship.
Yep.
And yeah, sure, you go 1,000 miles an hour this way, and does it create any resentment? Does it
I don't think so. So I think
you might have to shut the back door too, Jack.
So I don't think so. We're pretty good. I'm really conscious of that. And for me, success does look like I have to be healthy and fit. I have to spend time socially with my friends. I have to have a great relationship with my wife, and I have to be running a business. And so those are my 4 pillars. So I'm really conscious of those pillars. And so yeah, it ebbs and flows sometimes. So sometimes
She sounds very supportive though.
she is super supportive. Yeah. She's super supportive. And it's when I say I'm running hard at the work, it's I still cook us dinner 5 nights a week.
Okay.
Right. So
lucky her, she's got an inbuilt chef at home.
So I even though I'm working these hours, I go pick up my son Monday, Tuesday from daycare at either 4:30 or 3 p.m. And then he's just part of me while I'm working. And then by the time my wife gets home from work Monday, Tuesday, dinner's on the table for her, right? So I'm doing certain things that are even though I'm working really hard, I've integrated that. I might have a call while I'm cooking because I can do that.
Yeah.
And then on the Saturday and Sunday, yesterday, we went to Palm Beach. We just spent all day. My phone's away because we're at the beach with my son. I have.
So
very
you're mindful.
conscious.
You're mindful.
Super mindful. I'm super mindful because I want to. I want to be a great husband because one of my lifelong goals is I want to be married to Holly for the rest of my life. And so I know that it requires, I'm deeply in love with her, but I know that it requires, continual effort to make sure.
Did you learn from the breakup? Did she dump you?
She dumped me. Yeah. So yeah, what did I learn? I was a kid, and I think, she had bad advice from her grandma, and her grandma said, you can't just date one boy the whole life. So I think we were as soon as I moved to Melbourne, she was like, oh fuck, you got away. And then she'd come. So it was it was a very quick little breakup.
Magnetism. Yeah. So last question. If you were going to give yourself advice when you were younger, I know this is a very common question.
No, that's fine.
What advice would you give Frank?
I reckon the advice I would give would be I was really bad at school, and so I was really bad at learning, and I prioritized at 0, and I think that, because I was so fixated on cooking and being the best chef I could be, I think the advice I would give is like figure out earlier other things that might interest you. Now, I'd never take back being a chef. It's the best thing I ever did. But like bring in other little learning blocks that can interest you, because now I've kind of figured out, no, I'm just really good at ruthlessly prioritizing things that I enjoy, and everything else falls by the wayside in terms of like, if you said to me, Frank, like go learn maths, I'm like, oh, brother. But like now it's like, hey, like, we're doing this business. You got to learn this, 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 and this. And I'm like, I'm fixated on it.
So attach the purpose to it.
Yeah. It's like, is realize that, the things that are in front of you at school, I mean, maybe it's because I have the benefit of the content that's out there, but I mean, to anybody listening, is like the content that's available right now. You are the master of your own destiny, and you can be like, let's take it really granular. Like the algorithm that serves you today, if you're watching Instagram, is actually a product of yourself. And I've recently realized this because I don't consume Instagram. I just post on it. But I've been needing to do more content, which is like reactional videos. And so what I did is I sat there for an hour and I mastered my own algorithm. I found the thing, it's a dancing teenager. I'm not interested. It's a joke. I'm not interested. And before you know it, my entire algorithm is learning in business. And I was like, oh, fuck. We're all like complaining about the stuff. It's like, well, no, the algorithm is just learning what you're like attracted to. And by attracted, it's like you stayed there longer than 7 seconds. It's like, okay, you like this, and it just starts to feed you. You're the master of that. And so if you can tame it to be like, no, what I care about are these interests and help me learn, it'll serve you literally. Now I look at like screen time. If I spend an hour on Instagram a day, I'm like, I learned a shitload because it was all like, it's literally Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, this, Peter Thiel, and like, it's all I get served. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
All I get served is American politics, which I really like. Actually, I just want to finish on this question. So, mentors.
Yes.
Mentors, like, tell it, like, do you rate them? Like, where, people, what a good mentor can do.
I think through the process of me doing it currently, it's incredible what it can do. If you have the right person, and I'm not saying I'm the right person, I'm incredible, it sounds bad, but what I'm saying is having someone who's walked the path and can help you quickly get to a decision is incredibly powerful to cut down the time it takes. That being said, the most common question I get asked is, well, Frank, I don't have access to people. And that's so true. And so what did I do? It was just digital mentors. It was like, what is the skill I need to actually know? So one of the challenges I see is like the mental masturbation of people just consuming content all day long in terms of self-help, this. And it's just like you're creating noise. It's like, I want to create signal in the noise, which is like, okay, I have a challenge right now with either I need to start a business. So what are the books I need to listen to about starting a business? Or I'm in a business, I need to scale it. What are the books or the people in that space that can help me do that? And so I would just fixate on individuals through the process, and those become my digital mentors.
Because some you only need for a period of time,
That's
don't you?
right.
And then you
That's
sort
right.
of move on to...
Exactly.
Or you might go back to them as well.
Yes.
Because I'm sitting here thinking about your first business, all the things that you've learned and what you put on the line, and I'm thinking about your parents. You also, on the other side of that, it's not always a success story. Like you might have had to pay your parents back $1 million, and
we paid them back $4 million.
Yeah, there you go. But it's you could lose everything at the same time as well. So I'm sitting here thinking your next business will be far quicker, far better because of Frank then and Frank today. And if someone was working alongside of you and said, Frank, can you coach me on how to run a business, you could save them 10 years.
Yeah, easily. Yeah. So like, here's the last piece I'd do. One of the challenges I see for people in these corporate jobs or in a job is what they're doing in terms of decision-making tree is they go, this job pays me more and the title looks more fancy. I think that's a short-term decision-making. The way I look at it is, okay, this job may pay me more, the same, less. It actually doesn't matter. Who am I going to be learning from? And so the problem is people are like, I don't have access to a mentor. It's like, well, what about a person that you're working next to on the side of day by day by day and take the view, like I had it. I had people who worked next to me and there's hardly any questions. And then someone who's just trying to consume knowledge. And like the reality is like as a leader of the business, you want to pass on that knowledge. You'll be really kind. Like I had a person who wanted to start their own side hustle business. And so part of my role as CEO is like, I want to help her start her marriage celebrant business. And so I did. Right, it's like so
because you want them to be happy and help and pump.
That's right.
Because they're happy there, they're happy there.
Exactly. And so like think about it from that lens and then go, okay, is this the right place that's going to serve me over the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah. Because you're going to learn a whole lot.
Yeah. You're a legend. Thanks. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Talk soon.